My grandmother grew enough food to feed the entire block. Her secret? She barely touched her garden. Here's what most gardeners get wrong. A 12-year agronomy study found that over-fertilizing alone can cut tomato yields by 39%. The number one killer in most gardens isn't pests and it isn't weather. It is too much care. Today, 20 vegetables that produce more when you ignore them. Ranked by 5 criteria: neglect tolerance, yield, growing zones, harvest speed, and grocery savings. Stick around for number 3. It literally pulls its own fertilizer out of thin air. And number 1 will save you over $100 at the grocery store. Plus a $3 bonus at the end that automates your watering and kills your weeds. All in 13 minutes. Grab a pen. All right, number 20, rosemary. Drought-adapted with woody stems that store moisture for weeks. Pest-repelling terpenes keep aphids away from everything growing beside it. USDA zones 6 to 11. Grows from a cutting, basically for free. Harvest from transplant, 70 to 90 days. Number 19, mint. Spreads by underground runners. Ignore it and it multiplies. Zone 3 to 9. One plant becomes 20 in a single season. Pro tip, plant it in a container to control the spread. Number 18, basil. Self-seeds when you let it flower. Its terpenes protect nearby tomatoes from hornworms. Built-in companion protection. Zone 2 to 11 as annual. One seed packet gives you hundreds of plants across seasons. Number 17, spinach. Cold-hardy self-seeder. Germinates in soil as cold as 35 degrees Fahrenheit. Zone 3 to 9. Bolts, seeds the ground, and returns next season without replanting. Baby leaves in 25 to 30 days. Number 16, lettuce. When you skip harvest, it bolts, flowers, and drops thousands of seeds. Cold stratification over winter reactivates them in spring. Zones 4 to 9. Harvest in 30 to 45 days. Plant once, harvest for years. Number 15, kale. Survives down to 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Frost actually sweetens the leaves. Zones 1 to 10 overall. Per 100-foot row, 200 to 300 pounds. One of the highest yields per square foot of any vegetable on this list. Number 14, Swiss chard. Cut and come back for months without replanting. Bolt-resistant compared to spinach. Zone 3 to 10. One planting feeds you the entire season. Every one of these plants is engineered by evolution to survive without you. But numbers 13 through 8, that's where the real grocery savings begin. Number 13, radishes. The fastest reward in gardening. 25 days from seed to harvest. Zone 2 to 10. They outrun most pests and problems before insects even find them. Perfect entry point for new gardeners. And if you're finding these lazy secrets helpful, I share a new one every week here. Number 12, peas. Nitrogen-fixing roots with rhizobium bacteria that pull nitrogen straight from the air and deposit it in your soil. The plant feeds itself and improves the ground for everything around it. Zone 3 to 11. Yield 2 to 4 pounds per foot of row. Number 11, beets. Deep taproot goes 60 inches down to reach water in dry conditions. Zone 2 to 10. 2 harvests in 1 plant, greens and root. Days to harvest, 50 to 70. Number 10. Carrots. The deepest drought system on this list, taproot up to 120 inches or 10 feet straight down. While other plants wilt in a drought, carrots have their own private water supply. Zone 3 to 10. Days to harvest, 70 to 80. Variety to grow, Danvers 126. Number 9. Cucumbers. Fast-growing, drought-tolerant vines once established. Yield up to 200 pounds per 100-foot row. Zone 4 to 12. Days to harvest, 50 to 70. The trick: mulch the base and they water themselves between rains. Number 8. Okra. Heat and drought powerhouse. Once established, it thrives on neglect in high temperatures that stress most other vegetables. Zone 8 to 12. Days to harvest, 50 to 65. Variety: Clemson spineless. Numbers 7 through 4, the heavy hitters. Serious yield, serious resilience, serious grocery savings. Number 7, winter squash. Drought-adapted after establishing, pest-repelling compounds in the leaves and stem. And here's what makes it special: storage. Butternut squash stores 24 to 26 weeks at 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 6 months of free food from one planting. Zone 3 to 10. Number 6. Sweet potatoes. Drought-tolerant vines that spread and physically suppress weeds without any work from you. Yield up to 200 pounds per 100-foot row. Zone 8 to 12. One slip becomes 8 to 12 pounds of food. Store at 50 to 55 degrees for months. Number 5. Potatoes. One seed potato produces 5 to 10 tubers. Per 100-foot row, 150 to 200 pounds. Zone 3 to 10. Leave a few in the ground and they volunteer back next season. The plant multiplies itself. Variety for lazy gardeners: Yukon Gold. Number 4. Peppers. Here's the survival mechanism most gardeners don't know. Capsaicin. It's not just for flavor. In one peer-reviewed study, capsaicin compounds were found to deter Colorado potato beetle feeding by up to 73% in observed conditions, though results may vary by environment. The plant defends itself. Zone 8 to 12. Days to harvest, 60 to 90. Variety: California Wonder. Numbers 20 through 4, done. What all of these have in common: at least one survival system that works even when you don't show up. But the top 3, each one has a completely different superpower. Let's slow down. Number 3, green beans. Here's why this plant makes the top 3. It literally makes its own fertilizer from thin air. The roots secrete flavonoids that attract rhizobium bacteria from the surrounding soil. Those bacteria form nodules on the roots. They use an enzyme called nitrogenase to break down atmospheric nitrogen, converting it into pure plant food. According to University of Massachusetts research, nitrogen fixation in legumes like green beans contributes 50 to 300 pounds of nitrogen per acre. The plant feeds itself. And when it dies back, it deposits that nitrogen for everything that grows there next season. My grandmother never bought fertilizer for her bean bed. I spent years thinking it was luck. The science says it was design. Zone 3 to 11. Days to harvest, 50 to 60. Yield, 2 to 4 pounds per plant. Variety to grow, Blue Lake bush. Plant them, walk away. And speaking of natural chemistry, number 2 uses a completely different mechanism. This one doesn't just feed itself, it protects every other plant in your garden. Number 2. Garlic. When any part of the garlic plant is damaged, whether a bug bites or a tool nicks it, an enzyme called alliinase instantly converts a compound called alliin into allicin. Allicin is a volatile sulfur compound that repels insects, inhibits fungal growth, and masks the scent of neighboring plants from pests. It's broad-spectrum, passive, and completely automatic. One plant, 4 survival mechanisms. Self-seeding, if left in ground, drought tolerance once established, soil improvement, and chemical pest defense. And here's the number that stops people cold. You spend around $20 on seed garlic. That gives you 35 to 50 heads. At current grocery prices, that's $35 to $60 of garlic. But here's the thing. You save the best cloves as next year's seed. You will never buy seed garlic again. Not ever. My grandmother called garlic the garden's bodyguard. She planted it at every corner, every season. Zone 3 to 9. Days to harvest, 240 to 270 days. Yes, it's slow, but it works while you sleep. Best variety for cold climates, Music Hardneck garlic. Now, number 1. I told you at the... My grandmother's rule about zucchini was simple. Plant 2, never more. She once planted 4 and spent the summer chasing her neighbor Linda down the block trying to give it away. One seed packet, typically under $3 versus 80 to 200 pounds of food. At grocery prices, that's well over $100 in produce from a single $3 packet. That's your number 1. 4 survival mechanisms. Highest yield on the list. Zones 3 to 10. Harvest in 50 to 65 days. Most cost-efficient plant in your garden. Your grandmother already knew. Before you go, I promised you a bonus. One thing, $3 this weekend. And my grandmother would never forgive me for skipping it. Before we get to the $3 secret, everything on this list is generally safe around dogs and kids. My grandkids run right through the zucchini patch all summer. Just keep unused straw bales covered so they don't get moldy. The $3 mulching secret. 1 bale of clean straw from your local feed store or home center. Cost $5 to $8. Spread it 3 to 4 inches thick around the base of any vegetable plant on this list. According to Utah State University Extension, mulching reduces soil moisture evaporation by up to 10 times compared to bare soil. That means you water half as often or skip watering entirely between rains. It also blocks sunlight from reaching the soil surface, which typically stops most weed seeds from germinating. One action: cuts watering by 50%, kills weeds before they start. My grandmother called it the garden's blanket. 2 quick companion planting combinations while we're here. Tomatoes with basil. Basil oils deter whiteflies and hornworms. Carrots with onions. Onion scent confuses carrot rust flies. Squash with nasturtium. Nasturtiums act as a trap crop, drawing aphids away. Plant these pairs and let them work. Now the numbers. A full seed investment across all 20 vegetables runs about $30 to $50. Add 1 bale of straw, call it $55 all in. University of Missouri Extension has documented that a well-managed home garden generates roughly $1,050 to $1,200 in grocery value per season. That's a 10 to 1 return from plants that prefer to be left alone. 3 things to avoid, and every one of them means doing less. Do not overwater. Saturated soil causes Pythium and Phytophthora root rot that wipes out zucchini and tomato beds completely. Do not over-fertilize. A 12-year agronomy study documents a 39% yield reduction in tomatoes from excess fertilization. And do not over-fuss. These plants have survival systems built over millions of years. Trust them. The garden doesn't need more work. It needs the right plants and a blanket. Let me leave you with this: 20 vegetables, 4 survival mechanisms, designed by evolution to produce more when you leave them alone. $30 in seeds, 1 $5 bale of straw, and 30 minutes of your weekend. Your garden essentially runs itself. By next month, your neighbors will be asking what changed, and you'll have the most satisfying answer. You did less. And number 1, zucchini. All 5 criteria, all 4 mechanisms. Under $3 for a seed packet that feeds your whole block. Your grandmother already knew. Drop a comment right now. Which of these 20 are you planting first? If you're already a lazy gardener, tell me your number 1. I read every single comment. You've got the plants that thrive on neglect, but if you want to know exactly what to do with that straw mulch so it doesn't accidentally invite slugs, click the video on your screen right now. I'll walk you through the 3 rules of lazy mulching. Get out there this weekend. Happy gardening.